Power Platform analyst at the Brown Consulting. He's a Power BI developer. When is in the mode, wow, wonderful. So people analyze when they are in the mode. Quite interesting. So if you are from Unilag, you can see your alumni here. He's a trainer he's a trainer with specialty in analytics and data reporting. Also, I can see a cool picture here. He's also a photographer. So he's looking to learn Microsoft Fabric and DBT. So let's talk about a data warehouse and database administrator over here. He's not a tech bro, but seems like he's doing a little bit of techie. So please welcome in everyone. Please kindly drop a reaction in the so that we can welcome you. So Mr. Bolaji, you have the floor now, sir.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Gani, for that warm introduction. All right, so good afternoon, everyone. Okay, I can see a couple of people from Unilag, Egbiola, Fad, Oladimeji, Greatest Akokite. Great. So I'm just going to turn on my video for a short while so you can see that it's not AI that is speaking that is speaking to you. So good afternoon, everyone. While I share my screen, let's see. All right, please let me know if you can see my screen. You can just type in the chat
I
or
can
the moderator. Okay,
I
excellent.
can see
Thank
your
you. And you
screen.
can hear me loud and clear.
Yes, sir. But we will really appreciate it if you can get a little bit louder.
Get a little bit louder. Okay, so let me see. How about now? You hear me better? Anyone wants
Yes,
to
still the same.
confirm as well in the chat? Am
Yeah,
I
it's better.
audible?
Your audio, sir.
All right. Okay. Excellent. Thank you very much. Okay, I can see a couple of chats in a couple of messages in the chat. Okay, I see Blessing says welcome. Hi, Blessing. How do you pronounce that name? TJSTAT. Interesting. All right, so I'm going to kickstart the session now. One thing I want us to know is that this is going to be sort of an interactive session. I'm going to be asking a lot of questions as we move along, and your responses would be very vital to the success of the session. I can see I have 35 people on the call, excluding myself and the moderator. Okay, it's increasing, 38. So I do have about 35, 40 of us on the call. So your responses, your interaction is what's going to make this session a success. So right now I'm going to turn off my video so we can all focus on what I have to say and not how I look. Okay, so welcome to the session. We're going to be looking at creating visualizations and reports in Power BI. So I guess we're already familiar with our ground rules. No need to run through that. And Ganyu has been very kind to warmly introduce me. Hi, moderator. I think you might want to mute your mic because there's a bit of static noise coming through. Okay, excellent. Thank you very much for that. All right, so just like I've rightly introduced, I'm a data analyst, Microsoft certified professional. I love to do training, work with Power BI. So by Power BI stuff, I say it's when I'm in the mood. Yes, I don't always do Power BI, but when I feel like doing Power BI, I like to do it well. Part-time photographer. Well, you can argue with me about that. I don't think I've made any money from my photography, but it's just photography on the side, just helping people capture memories, friends, family, that kind of stuff. And then, I'm looking to learn about Fabric and DBT. Everybody's talking about analytics engineering now, right? So I want to jump on that wave as well. So hopefully for the year runs out or by the start of next year, I'll get into Fabric and DBT proper. And I like to say I'm not a tech bro. And some of you on this call might disagree. Like, hey, I mean, you say you're an analyst, you're a developer, yet to say you're not a tech bro. Well, For me, it's not really about the tech, it's more about the business, right? If there was a title that I would use to capture myself, I'd say I'm a business data analyst, right? So it's an analyst much more geared towards uh Power BI. Okay, I see a message from Alex. So am I in the Power BI mode now? Well, we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. Okay, so very quick one. Where are we joining from? So right now, I'm speaking to you live from Ogun State, Nigeria. So just type in the chat. Where are you joining us from? Where are you joining us from? Where are you joining us from? Anywhere in the world. Maybe you're in South Africa. Okay. All right. I see Rashid is from Abuja, Nigeria. I really want to pronounce your name correctly. Cheese TJ Start. Let's call it TJ Start from Ile-Ife, Osun State. Alex, Edo State. Oluwaseyi from Ilori, Abdulwahid, Ibadan, Delvis, Port Harcourt, Ibadan, Maiduguri, and I see my friends and family from Lagos, Osun State. Oh, Oikosla from France. Excellent. Adequate from France. Frederick from Ghana. Wow, 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 wow. Lots and lots of. Okay. Takoradi in Ghana. Interesting. I love the sound of that. Reminds me of an artist in Ghana. I don't remember his name, but it's very, very similar to that. Okay, TJ Stats. All right. All right, all right, all right, all right. Excellent. See, Latifa from Osun State, Nigeria. Ridwan from Lagos. Blessing from Lagos. Okay, so a large number of us are from Nigeria. We have our friends from Ghana and from France. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Good, good one, good one, good one. Good to have you all on the session. Okay, see you from my degree. All right. I guess I've not seen anybody from the East. I think I've seen North, let's say North Central, I've seen Abuja, I've seen a lot of the West. Not seen anyone from East Nigeria yet. Am I correct? Yes, I am correct. I've not seen anyone from East Nigeria. Oh, we have from the UK. Wow. All obviously from Sheffield, UK. I have Bella from Boo. I don't want to pronounce that wrongly. Let's just call it. Let's go with Cameroon. Okay. All right. I see Freda from Asaba, Dan from Kenya. All right. Marian. Okay. You're from the east, but you reside in Osun State. Wow. Very curious. What got you to Osun State? Job, school. It could be anything. All right. Lasisi from North Central. Excellent. Excellent. Thank you, everyone, for sharing. I do hope we'll have a wonderful time over the next couple of hours. So, what are we going to be talking about? Okay, thank you, Miriam, for that. All right, thank you very much. So, what are we going to be talking about today? Now, notice the title of the session is what? Creating reports and visualization with Power BI, right? But when you talk about reports, talk about visualizations, especially we're talking about how do you visualize data in Power BI, right? So first off, we'll start about just getting ourselves acquainted with what exactly is data visualization. Then we'll look at what's supposed to be the focus of data visualization. Then I have an interesting point there that I said. I said it's not about Power BI. And many of us here, when we hear reporting, we hear Power BI. When we hear reporting or dashboards, we hear Tableau. When we hear reporting or dashboards, we hear Excel, we hear Looker. But what I'm going to show us today is that it's really not about Power BI. Then once we agree on that, we look at report types, talking about something of form versus function, right? We talk about reporting, we talk about report types, maybe chart types, we have form versus function. And then we're going to share a couple of resources afterwards, and we're going to do a Q&A at the end. So now I want to bust your bubble a little bit. You might think they're going to do a lot in Power BI. Sorry to mention, we may not get to Power BI. But one thing I want to guarantee you is this, right? Everything we are going to discuss here is something that's going to be applicable regardless of the visualization tool that you're working with, right? And that's really the driving point, or the point I want to drive home today by the end of this session is really that third point there, which is it's not about Power BI. All right, so let's jump right in. Okay, thank you. Immaculate from the east side in Abuja. Excellent. So, my second question for the session: what is data visualization? So just take out your phones or your laptops, whatever you're joining us with, and just type in the chat. When you hear the word visualization, or if you have a younger brother or a colleague that says, hey, I've been on the internet all this time and I just see everybody talking about data visualization, data visualization, data visualization. Could you please just explain to me what data visualization is? So I want you to go into the chat now, just one simple sentence, right? Describe what is data visualization. I want you to capture it. I want to use that to see what is our perception of data visualization or reporting, or creating report dashboards in general. What do we think by that? So I see TJ Stats says data visualization is graphical representation of data, which Marian also agrees with. Excellent, excellent. All right, so I'm looking at the chat. Let's see. It's going very fast. Okay, see, Alex says data visualization can be seen as a way of displaying data on pictures and charts and images. Well done. Aisha says a pictorial representation. Okay, Lassie is making the correction. Not sure what that was. Communicating data in a non-technical way. I love that. All right, Tiwatakwe says data visualization is representing data with diagrams to aid easy understanding. I love that explanation. Lillian, representation of data in graphs and bars. Well done. Graphical representation of data for ease of understanding. Representation of data using graphs, using charts and graphs to represent data. Pictorial or graphical representation of data. Storytelling with data using diagrams. I love that. I really, really love our responses. And okay, we have one more that comes in. It translates complex, high volume, or numerical data. I'm guessing Ridwan is a science student. Complex, high volume, or numerical data into a visual representation that is easier to process. I love our responses so far. I really, really love our responses. And if we were to bring all of that together, we can see a couple of intersections with what we've just described. We all agree that data visualization involves some kind of graph, some kind of chart, some kind of pictorial representation of data, right? And then we also agree that you're trying to break down something that is complex, something that is dense, that's something that is, a lot, right, to consume. And you're trying to make it in a way that is easier for someone else to understand. Very, very good explanations. But I just want to share you know, what I've seen on the internet when it comes to data visualization. And I'm going to share a quote from a couple of people that would be considered data experts or have written extensively on the concept of data visualization. So the first quote that I want to share with us is this. It says, data is more than numbers, and to visualize it, you must know what it represents. Data represents real life. It's a snapshot of the world in the same way that a photograph captures a small moment in time. Just read that and digest it. And this was taken out of a book called Data Points Visualization That Means Something, and is written by someone called Nathan Yao. This is what Nathan says when when he tries to describe data visualization in that book. At the moment I saw photograph, I thought to myself, okay, maybe this is why I actually love data visualization, because I love taking pictures and I love photography. But let's just highlight a couple of things that are important, right, from what Nathan has described data visualization to be. Now, if you highlight those things, you see that according to Nathan, three things I see here that are important. Number one, data is more than numbers, right? When we think of data, most likely we all think of spreadsheets, right? An Excel file, a CSV file, a database somewhere with a bunch of numbers. Maybe you throw in some text into that, right? But data is more than numbers, and that's why he said to realize it, you must know what it represents. You must understand the context behind the data, right, that you're trying to report on or that you're trying to visualize, because the absence of that context, right, will lead to what we call beautiful rubbish, right? Something that looks aesthetically pleasing, but it's just rubbish, right? So it's more than numbers, and to visualize it, you must know what it represents. So key point there is what? The context behind the data that you're working with, right, is very, very important. I'm going to share with us another definition. This one I love the most, and it's from a book, another book by Andy Kirk. And Andy Kirk wrote the book called Data Visualization, a handbook for data-driven design. And in that book, there is a page in that book where I've extracted this definition from, and it says this. It says data visualization is the visual representation and presentation of data to facilitate understanding. If I take all of our responses that we have just dropped in the chat now, you would agree with me that this sentence here really summarizes everything that we've just put in the chat, right? But when I first saw this, what struck me was, why did he make the distinction between visual representation and presentation? I mean, when you think of the word, you might think to yourself that what's the difference between representation and presentation, right? Many of us think of, myself included, will think of visualization as just presenting data. But then it ties back to what Nathan was saying, which is what you must understand what the data is about, right? Because your visualization is representing something. So you are translating some spreadsheet, some numbers, some bunch of rows of data coming from a database in a visual way. Now, for you to translate it appropriately in that visual way, you must be able to accurately capture, right? What's the essence of that data? Now, after you've captured that, then you're now presenting that in a much more easier way that people can consume. But the last highlighted point here is the key point, or is the key focus, if you will, of data visualization, which is to facilitate understanding. Towards to facilitate understanding. The whole point why you sit down and spend 5 hours in Power BI or in Excel to create a visual, to create a report, is that when someone sees that dashboard or report that you've created, they understand something from it. That's the whole essence of visualizing data. If I presented some charts to you and you sat down without charts for 2-3 minutes and you're not able to make anything out of it, you probably won't ask me for another chart the second time, because you may conclude that this guy is not really going to do anything. And that might be the story for some of us, maybe at the workplace, right? You've been trying to get everyone in your organization to start to use the reports that you create, or you've been trying to improve or drive some kind of data literacy in your organization, right? And every time you create the report, you observe that the moment you present that report, maybe for the first time in a meeting, no one else is going back to that report to look at it. And that's because this third criteria from this definition here may not have been met. It's not facilitating any understanding on the parts of those that are looking at your reports. Okay? Now, if we agree that the essence of visualization is to represent and present data in order to make it easier for people to understand something, then the question then should be, where do you start data visualization from? Now, I want to point that question. I want to, ask us that question, right? When you say you want to do some visualization or you want to do some kind of reporting that your boss has asked you to do, what's the first thing you typically do? Just type in the chat. Your boss has just called you that, hey, I need a report. Boom. What do you do? What's the first thing you do? Just think about it for a second and put it in a very short sentence. What's the first thing you do when you want to create any kind of visualization? It could be reports, it could be dashboard, it could be in any tool, right? I'm not even restricting it to Tableau. So what's the first thing you typically do? Okay, I'm looking at the chart now. TJ Start says understanding the data. Same thing with Ziliad, understand. Abdwai said you clean. Marian says you understand what the data is all about, so you can know how best to visualize it. Very good. Alex, get the data and understanding it. Abdulaziz, ask questions. Okay. I like where this is going. Okay, Actually says problem statement. The own first step is problem statement. Any more responses? Okay, Abdul Rashid, data collection, then you clean, then you visualize. Alex, know the angle your boss wants to see the data from. I guess Alex boss has stressed him a lot, so that's always the first thing he does. Like, boss, let me know exactly what you want. Okay, Zane says, understand the objective to represent. Tiwatokwe says, identify the people who will use the reports. Who are my end users? Talk to Bootstrap, defining the problem, understanding the data, and the problem statement. Very well said. Very well said. And I like there are about two or three responses that I really love there. Okay, understanding the problem you're trying to solve with the data. Thank you, Yetunde. There are about two or three responses I love there. And a couple of us have said that we start with what's the problem statement. Alex said, I'm going to start with, boss, what angle do you want to see this data from? What exactly do you want me to show you? Right? And indeed, that's the first step where data starts from. It's not even about the cleaning. Yes, we want to understand the data, right, which a couple of us said, but I'm going to pick on Izina's comment, which says, understand the objective to represent, right? And that's what I've summarized as curiosity. That's where reporting or visualization starts from. Curiosity. And what's curiosity? You're wanting to know about something. When your boss asks you for a report, he wants to know something. That something, right, is what you should drive at. That is your, what's the word now? That's your lamp, right? That's your headlight. That is what is pointing you in the direction that the entire hours you're going to spend creating reports on. That's your focus, right? What's the curiosity behind what this report is supposed to do? Or to better put, there should be a need for the understanding that the visualization offers. A question or a series of questions that need answers. That's basically it. So your boss has asked you to create a report. The annoying thing is many times they don't even know what exactly they want. They just call you, hey, I want to see a report. Can you give me a sales report about XYZ? Right? That's just all they'll tell you. Can you give me a report about XYZ? And you'll be like, hmm, okay, you go, you spend hours in Power BI, Excel, you clean. You get back to them and you're like, no, it's not giving me what I want. You are there, but you are not there. Go back again. Or maybe it's just you're just trying to create a pet project, right? You're trying to build some projects and portfolio stuff. And typically what you first do is you just get data. You just go on Cargo or wherever data source, you download a couple of Excel files, CSV files, you connect it to Parkway, you clean, you model, and you just keep dropping charts and graphs and everything. You just create something, right? Maybe you do spend some time understanding the data, so you don't create something out of context, right? But then when someone asks you to present that report, what you most likely do, right? You can correct me if I'm wrong, is you just read A to Z, all the charts that you have on your screen. There's no ending story, right? There's no focus to the entire thing that you just done. All you've just done is you got data, you cleaned data, and you put a couple of charts on the screen, right? But when you start with questions, right, which I think someone mentioned as well in the chat, when you start with questions, when you start with a need, when you start with curiosity, right, you get better better reports or better visualizations. And that was what Andy Kirk said in his book, right? He said that you do not create a visualization because you happen to have data, right? Which is, I mean, myself included, I have done this many times. I want to do a pet project. I just go download, build reports, publish, put it on LinkedIn, get 50 likes, get 20 comments, send it to my friend, and add it to my portfolio. Done. Go for an interview, they say, what have you done? You just present it and you read through it, right? But when you do what this guy is saying, he says that you do not create visualization because you happen to have data. Okay, I have data, so just do something, right? You create a visualization because there is a what? A definable need. You can't say it any better. A what? A definable. It's not vague. There's a focus and there's a need for that focus. So there's a definable need for the understanding that the visualization offers. Whether a need by you, so you are maybe curious as an analyst, or there is someone else like your boss, your colleague that has asked you to prepare some kind of reporting, right? When that clear need, when that clear curiosity is defined, right, then your reporting and your visualization would be the best. This one I'm saying from experience. This is not even book. Now I'm telling you this one personally from experience. When I started out, I have gone to, we all want to do projects, right? We want to build our skills and everything, which is absolutely wonderful. Very good. You start out, you're trying to build reports, build this. You just go and just download data, and then you do something, and then you publish. Where it started to change for me, that's before I got into more of the corporate things, is I started to do data challenges, right? A lot of data challenges. And one of the data challenges I loved the most was one by Enterprise DNA. If you've heard of them, you probably know them. They do this monthly Power BI data challenges. And what I really love about their challenges is that they give you a brief at the start of that challenge that, okay, this is a manager for a company that does XYZ, blah, 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 blah. And they want to see this, or this is a problem that you're having, or this is this and that. When you get that brief, you automatically know that there is no visual you're going to create, right? It has to answer that question because they put you in a position of an analyst, maybe preparing something for a manager, or you've come in as an external consultant, right? You're trying to prepare something for a manager. Then you have to make sure that whatever it is that you are building answers that brief because even you yourself, right, you can evaluate what you've done. So you spend maybe a week, you've built out your report, you go back and read the brief of that challenge and you ask your own self with your data that you have done, did I really answer this question? Okay. All right, so what's the challenge? So Enterprise DNA, you can search them online. Enterprise DNA, they have a monthly Power BI challenge. I think it's now called Builds, but if you search them up on LinkedIn, just search for Enterprise DNA. At the end of the session, I'll put the link to that as well, and you can check it out. Right. So the definable need is the most important part of a data visualization process. Right? What's the goal? What's the focus? They could be either for your pet projects, for your boss, for even you yourself that you want to explore data, right? You explore data with some kind of direction. Okay, maybe when you start understanding the data, that's when you are able to raise questions like, what if this? Oh, or is this even an issue? Or even take for example, all your boss has asked you, or let's say all the brief that your boss has given you is that, oh, um Sunday, we saw that our sales has been dropping right now, and we're not really doing very good. If we continue like this, we might close shop. That's all your boss has told you. Then you take that and you go back and you say, okay, why are we doing sales? You start out, you plot, you do some time series or something like that. You see, okay, this is where it started to drop. You find the cutoff point that it dropped. You ask a new question to yourself, oh, what really happened at this point? Maybe then you now go and look at how the products were selling, what regions were we selling, what customers were buying and were not buying. And when you do that, you get more questions, more questions, more questions, more questions, more questions, and so on. So that is the starting point of data visualization or reporting in general. And it's really just what that just means is that it's not about Power BI. It's not about Excel. It's not about Tableau. It's not about any visualization tool. It's about what's the focus. Now, once that one in the process of defining that focus, right? I've distilled it down to okay, fine, I get what my focus is, right? And now I want to create the reports, right? So Bolaji, you've told me that yes, I need to focus, I need to decide on what I'm going to do. Okay, I've asked my boss questions, I get the problem now. What next? Right? Now that visualization process now, I like to break it into two parts, right? I'd say that there are two parts, like when you group the entire reporting process or visualization process, there are two parts to it, in my opinion. Now, the first part is deciding what to visualize, and the second part, how to visualize. Okay? What and how. What and how. And the what part is what we've just basically been talking about so far. Okay? It is you trying to understand what's the focus, what's the end goal of this report. And what I highlighted here is what's the user story. Now, user stories is not something that we really consider as report developers at all. And what's a user story? A user story is this: your boss or someone, or there's a question that you want to answer. Let's assume it's your boss, right? That has given you the ask, or has made an ask to create a particular report, right? Before you plan or before you build the report, you can do two things. Understand what your boss has asked you and then say, okay, I'm going to need to get data, right? Okay, I get my data. I'm starting to understand my data. Then now say, if my boss was to see a report, right? I had prepared a dashboard. What is the journey that my boss will go through while looking at this report? Okay. So he's trying to understand, why are sales dropping? If I was to paint a user story in my head, the user story might go like this. How did we do in September? Okay, we did this. How have we been doing over the last 6 months? Oh, so okay, this is where we started doing bad. Okay, so why did we do bad? Can we see how our products were doing? Oh, we see all the products. Oh, wow, see, um, beverages were not selling a lot in this year, and if you look at last year, it seems like, oh, we made a lot more money from beverages, but this year we've not sold a lot of it. Maybe that accounts for why the sales have dropped. Can we look at the trend of beverages? Oh, I look at the trend of beverages. Interesting. So you picked in this month. You're just describing how your boss is going to go through that report. By the time you complete that process, right, you've kind of defined a journey that your boss is going to go through when it's looking at that report. That can help you self-evaluate what report that you're actually creating. Okay? Because at that point, it's almost as if you've lived the experience of your boss before the report even got to him, or you've lived the experience of your audience before the report even got to them. And you're able to create something that when they start to look at it, it's almost as if they have a question in their head, there's an answer already on their screen. A new question in their head, there's an answer already on their screen. And even if there's no answer on their screen yet, there is already things that they can do to get them to that answer on their screen. And then when they've exhausted all of the questions and answers that they have, most likely they have more questions for you. That's where you go back, you get that feedback from them, and then you continue to improve the report. So user stories are good ways for you to define, or to help you determine what is it that you want to visualize. On the how to visualize part, this is where all of us at this point, we are experts, right? Here is about, okay, now that I want to be able to communicate this, what are the things that I need to do in Power BI, right? What are the features that I need to use? What are the options that I have in Power BI to help me do this? This is where the how to visualize comes into play. So on the what side, right, we've talked about having a clear focus, a clear curiosity, a clear set of questions or problem statements, right, that the report is supposed to have, right? Now on the how side, we're talking about, okay, how do I achieve this desired output? What tools, what features, what technologies are available for me, either within a specific BI tool that I'm using, or trying to compare BI tools now. What is it that is available for me to make this reporting possible? Now, for you to know how to visualize that, like let me give us a scenario. If you get to a new country, maybe for our friends in France, you probably can relate. It's very difficult to communicate with someone in a country that you've not been to before, if they speak a language that you don't understand, right? Or even if you understand the language, the sentences that you'd be able to construct will be limited to the extent of the vocabulary that you know. Even with English language, right? Let's not even take it far, right? Or in your native language. Maybe you are learning your native dialect, for example. Sometimes you now go to the market, right? Or you go to a place where you see the core indigents of that place, and you're trying to talk to them, right? Now, the one you've learned is maybe a tushed up version of the native language, and then they speak some kind of language. I'll use something like Ijebu, for example, maybe for those of us that are from Nigeria, and you know the Ijebu language. There are some parts that you go and they speak the Ijebu to you. Even the one that you've learned at home, you can't use it to understand what they just said. And what I'm just trying to drive at here is that from the language part of it, right? The extent to which you understand the grammar and the vocabulary around that language kind of limits you to what you can produce, right, using that language. And the same thing applies to reporting, right? If you understand the vocabulary of visuals, okay, that expands the extent to which you can explore different options to visualize reports. Okay, I see Mustafa says Bawa. Okay, I'm not sure what that means, but I guess it's a language in reference to what I was saying. So your the vocabulary of visuals, the more vocabulary of visuals that you understand, the higher the options that you can explore, right, to visualize data. I'm speaking like an economist now. The higher it is, the lower the that. Okay, so when we talk about visual vocabulary, we already know what it means. Maybe you've not just seen this term specifically, but visual vocabulary just means that you know in different ways to visualize data. And this is the most common visual vocabulary um, documentation that you would see. So it's something by the Financial Times. Okay, and what the Financial Times did in this is they put out a set of, let's call it visual types, right? Or message types that you might want to communicate visually, and then they give you a list of options of chart types that can help you achieve that. So let me zoom in to some of this now. Okay. Now, on the top, you see that I have deviations, I have correlations. See if I can zoom in a lot more. So I have deviations, correlations, ranking, distribution, changes over time. What else do I have here? Magnitude. I see parts to whole and spatial data, flow, and so on, right? So when you're trying to visualize data, you're trying to show distributions, ranking, changes over time, correlations, or deviations. What they've now done is to show you examples of charts, right, that you can use to communicate this. So on the deviations part, for example, I can say divergent bar. What's a divergent bar? It's just a bar that shows positive and negatives. Now, take for example, I was trying to show different products, okay, and how they're performing this year versus last year. I could pull up a divergent bar and I can see who were the biggest, where was the biggest growth in terms of maybe revenue increases, where was it experienced across my different products, and where were the biggest losses. Okay, so if you want to get this, if you just go online, search for Financial Times visual vocabulary, you'll see a PDF, you download it, and you have the visual vocabulary. Okay, we need a source to this charts. Yes, no worry. After the session, you get my slides, and you'd be able to do all of that. But if you want to get this visual vocabulary, you don't even need my slides. Just go online, search for Financial Times visual vocabulary. You see a PDF, you download it, you're good. So let's just run through a couple of these charts. So we talked about the divergent bar. A divergent stacked bar, right, is another one. And what's a divergent stacked bar? A divergent stacked bar basically is you have like a midpoint and then you have divergence, right? Something on the positive, something on the negative. Now, on each positive and negative, you can now have stacks. And a very common example is when you're trying to visualize survey results. Those survey results where you have agree, strongly agree, and then disagree, strongly disagree, right? You can place it on a divergent stacked bar where on the right hand side you have your strongly agree and your agree, and on the left hand side you have your strongly disagree and your disagree. And then because they are stacked, someone can just focus on the agree part and see, did we have a lot of strongly agrees and strongly disagrees within this question, or did we have a lot of strongly um disagree and agrees within this question, right? And then because it's stacked, you can see the entire proportion of agrees as a whole and disagrees as a whole. So I see a comment in the chat by Aisha that says that she cannot see my screen. I'd like everyone to confirm if you can't still see my screen. Just type in the chat if you can. Just say yes. Okay. The moderator, do you want to confirm as well if you can still see my screen?
We are good, sir. I can see your screen, sir.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. All right, thank you so much for the feedback. I can see it there. So, actually, I might just want to check an internet or maybe log out and log in. Thank you very much for the feedback, everyone. Okay, moving on. So these are divergence or deviations, right? Let's look at correlations. Now, many of us, when we think of correlations, the only thing we think about is what? A scatter plot. That's all, right? Because XY axis now correlation, scatter plots. But when you think about what correlation simply is, what is correlation itself? Correlation is about showing what relationships between two items. Now, there are many ways you could actually show relationships. A common one is this. I can show relationships by plotting a column and a line chart. I can show relationships by plotting two line charts, right? Two line charts showing two different variables or two different quantities. Take for example, I want to plot my units sold and my revenue, right? I plot them on two line charts. When I observe the relationship or the movement of those line charts, it tells me the relationship between those two items. Because if one is moving up over time and the other one is moving up as well over time, maybe there is some form of correlation between the both of them. That's what this column and line chart is doing, which you probably know as a combo chart, right? And then you have a connected scatter plot. What is a connected scatter plot? A connected scatter plot is like an x-axis. It's like a typical scatter plot, but the lines are connected based on time. So for example, let me bring my pointer. Pointer. I won't be able to zoom if I bring my pointer. Okay, I have to choose one or the other. Sadly. Anyway, let me go. So a connected scatter plot, you can say, okay, this was year one, then it went to this in year two, then it came down to this in year three, and it came down to this in year four, come down year five, year six, year seven. That's what the connected scatter plot is. So it gives you the ability to do two things. You're comparing A and B, but you're able to compare A and B over time. Right, that's a connected scatter plot. And then you have, your bubble chart, and then a heat map as well, right? You can use to do relationships. Funny, all of this, everything under this um, correlation aspect, you can actually create in Power BI, right? You can create a connected scatter plot in Power BI, you can create a bubble chart in Power BI, you can create a heat map in Power BI, you can create a scatter plot in Power BI, right? But you must know when is the right situation for this chart, right? If I asked many of us before to create a correlation, the only thing that will probably come to your mind is scatter plot. If I ask you to just explore the relationships between X and Z, X and Y, right, you most likely would only have thought about a scatter plot. Let's see some other ones here. We have rankings. We're trying to show top to bottom. What is top? What is bottom? These are all chart types that we know about. Then you have something like this now, a dot strip plot. It's like a variation of, it's like a combination of a distribution and a ranking at the same time. You have slope. What slope just does is you have point A and point B, and just showing how different categories of variables have moved from point A to point B. You have a lollipop chart that's just a different version of a bar chart, and you have a bump chart. What does a bump chart show you? A bump chart is like every row here, right, is a rank. So who is at the top, second, bottom, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, right? And then a bump chart just shows you, okay, if I want to look at one single variable or let's say I'm ranking movies now. Maybe not movies now. Let's say employee performance. I wanted to rank the employee performance over the last 5 years. I can use a bump chart to say, okay, whoever is on the first line is who was ranking first. Whoever is on the second line is second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth. Okay, and the bump chart will just show me one employee how they have moved across time. So you went to, it was fifth, then it became sixth, then it moved to fourth, then it became third, then it became first at the end of the year. That's what the bump chart is just showing you. It's showing you what rankings, but also has a time portion to it. So we have, distributions, many ways to show distributions. It does report, like I said, histogram, a dot plot, you have a barcode plot, a box plot, a violin plot, a population pyramid, which can be very interesting when you're trying to show distribution between males and females. You have cumulative, you have a lot, right? A lot of visual options. Every of these visualization options, right, has their strengths, has their weaknesses, has the scenarios where they would be the better choice, right, to visualize that data. So improving your knowledge, right, or improving the scope of the kinds of visualization that can be created, and the not just the kinds now, the purpose of those visualizations that can be created helps you make decisions on the spot where you can almost build the dashboard in your head while just having a conversation with someone. All right. So that is the part when you're talking about how do you visualize. Okay. The first part is, try to improve or increase your visual vocabulary. Have an understanding of the different ways that can be used to communicate a certain type of message. When you have a proper understanding, or you have a good knowledge of different chart types that can be created, another thing you want to explore is form and function. Okay, so I talked about how you could break the entire process of reporting into two parts: what to visualize, how to visualize. Okay, now in the how to visualize part, I say you need to know all the different ways you can actually visualize when you're talking about chart types, right? But when you're not talking about not just chart types, yes, we're also talking about the report itself, right? You can also break that report into two groups based on what the form that report or visual is taking and the kind of function, right, that report is taking. So if I was to put up a chart, right, let's do like a small scatter plot here because we want to show the relationship between form and function. So on my y-axis, I have form. On my x-axis, I have function. Okay? Y-axis form, x-axis function. Now my form ranges from static to interactive. So when talking about the form of the reports or of the dashboard, we're talking about how static, how interactive. And when we're talking about the function, we're looking at, is it explanatory or is it what? Exploratory. So when we talk about explanatory, we're saying that when you create a visual or the report that is explanatory, right, the report author's message is clearly stated and represented. So for an explanatory visual, when I look at an explanatory visual or an explanatory report, okay, I'm seeing what you that created the report wants me to see. Okay, what is the takeaway that you have found from the report and you just want me to have that takeaway, boom, right? That is an explanatory report or an explanatory visual or data visualization or any of those synonyms. The second one, exploratory. Okay, I would just like the word implies, exploratory. At this point, you would have created a report. You've created it with the intention that your users would sit with the report and ask themselves questions, use your report to get answers to those questions. Okay, so at the exploratory point of view, you are not communicating an insight that you have found. No, you are enabling your users, right, with the ability to find those answers for themselves. And a typical example of an exploratory analysis, right, is when maybe there's a particular process in your organization, for example, right? Let's say customer complaints. Okay, we are in a company that sells we manufacture goods, we sell some kind of product that is expensive and at the same time can spoil easily, right? And then every time something spoils or every time a customer has a complaint, they send an email to us, right? They send an email to us. Now, it could be an email, it could also be a call. Now, when that email or call gets to us, we are required maybe from one of our customer reps or some of our maybe customer rep, sales rep, whoever it is required to respond right to that email. Now, we have an SLA. Oh, everybody that comes in that are complaints send an email to us are supposed to respond to their emails within let's say 24 hours, right? Or 12 working hours or something like that. So we have an SLA. SLA means service line agreement or it's a service level agreement. Now that is where we have a target that this is the standard that we want to perform on. Now there might not be any now that might not be currently tracked, right? Okay, let's say we're even tracking it, right? Oh, someone is computing how long everybody is taking to respond to their messages, and then you're comparing that against the target. If we were to create an exploratory report around that, nobody may have been thinking about the fact that there might be certain complaints going to some group of people that is making it difficult for them to respond on time. So your initial objective or initial goal could have been to just, hey, create a report to help us understand what the average response time is. We're not really seeing anything, or maybe all you just wanted to see is if you're performing at that point or not. So you prepare the report, and then they are seeing how your response times is over, you know, over the years, over the months, over the weeks, in comparison to your SLA. But an exploratory report can now be something that now gives them the addition to be able to break down to each single person, right, and see how that person is doing over time in terms of their response time, okay, or be able to compare the category of the complaints or the emails they're getting from your boss, from your customers, in comparison to the skill level of who is responding to them. Maybe that might be something that is interesting. So you just put it out to them there to say, okay, this is a report that can answer a couple of questions. You go and figure out if it answers your question. That's exploratory, right? Your users are the ones that dig into the report to get what it is that they want. Then you have static, right? What is a static report or a static visualization? A common example is a poster, right? Someone has done let's say, like during COVID, for example, I think we had a couple of static visualizations around COVID, and we had some exploratory visualizations around COVID. But let's say static, you just see a news outlet would create some visuals, put it on a chart, give you some descriptions or notes about it, and just it just stays there, right? You're not interacting with it. There's nothing you're going to click that's going to do anything. It's just what static, right? You don't intend for the user to interact with it or anything. A typical static presentation or visualization is, your typical PowerPoint presentation is what is static. Nobody's interacting with it. Although, now with Power BI, you have ways to do that, but that is typical example. Then you have the interactive one, right? This is probably what all of us know, right, as dashboard. When we think of dashboards and report, we think interactive report. So at this point, everybody can click here. You're using slicers, tooltips, animations. Basically, it allows for a user to act on the report, right, or to interact with the report and get a feedback or a response, right? That's when you talk about interactive visualizations. Now, you might be asking me, what's now the whole essence of understanding form versus function? The essence is that depending on the report's focus and depending on the audience of your report, one of these combinations, right, may be a better choice. Okay, let me explain. When you look through that quadrant of form versus function, when you look at the first top right quadrants, right, at this point we're looking at a static but exploratory visualization. Okay, it is static, but is what is exploratory. That might sound very counterintuitive. How can something be static yet exploratory? Now, it's static in the sense that you can't click and do anything, but it's exploratory in the sense that probably you have to sit down and read it. Say, for example, I maybe write like a book, maybe not a book, but like a report with multiple pages, and there's a lot of details inside of it, right? It's static, but you have to sit down and read and ask questions and basically move through the different pages of that report. Right? When I mean a report now, maybe just like a PDF book or something like that, not reports in the sense of Power BI. So that's the static and exploratory report, and there's a use case where that might be a better choice. Do we always need interactive? Maybe not. Another one could be your interactive and is exploratory. So this is probably where a lot of us sit, myself included, is you create something that is interactive, but the users go in there to see things, to ask themselves questions and get answers from that. So you can create an interactive and exploratory report. Then you have interactive and explanatory. This is one I've just recently started exploring. So it's interactive in the sense that user can click and there is a feedback, but it's explanatory in the sense that there is something that tells them or describe what it is that they are seeing on their screen. So for example, I start looking at the report that tells me total sales made in the report is this. Maybe like it's kind of summary, right? Total sales made in the report is this. It was a XYZ percentage improvement compared to last month, which was driven by da. This was a couple of notes. And every time a user comes and changes a slicer or changes a filter or clicks on a button somewhere, the summary updates. Okay, so it's interactive because the user can click and things will happen. But it's explanatory because the message is now a lot more clearly communicated with not just visuals now, but the conclusions that you want the user to at least as a first glance get, right, is still placed on that chart, right? So you can have an interactive and explanatory visual, and then the final one is what is static and explanatory. So this is like your PowerPoint presentation that's static and explanatory. A couple of things that you see in news articles are all mostly, maybe not all now, mostly static and explanatory. So their analyst teams have sat down and done some analysis, and then they're sharing those conclusions with you in a static way. I know I've seen some visualizations now. I'm not sure if it was New York Times or The Economist that they do a lot of explanatory and interactive, right? So they're reaching a conclusion for you, but then they see some form of interactivity like tool tips, like drill throughs, and all of those things. So each of these combinations, right, across these four quadrants, okay, are kinds of ways that your reports can exist, and there are use cases for them. An example of or a very good use case of a interactive and explanatory report is if you are creating a report. I believe most of us here use Power BI, right? If you are creating a report in Power BI, and the whole essence of that report was that there was something a team used to do manually in PowerPoint, right? There's something they used to do manually in PowerPoint, but they don't want to have to do it again in PowerPoint. They want to do it in where? In Power BI. But there are some other things that they want to make a presentation on that will still remain in PowerPoint. In Power BI, for example, now you can embed reports directly into PowerPoint. Now, such a report, when you think about how it's going to be presented, such a report should not be exploratory, right? Because it's going to be presented in is it's part of a presentation. It should not be exploratory. The key conclusions already should be in that report, but it can be interactive because you now want to highlight maybe specific segments or have two tips that show you additional information. Okay, so it can be interactive, but it should not be exploratory. It should be explanatory because it's part of a presentation, right? It's part of a PowerPoint deck or a slide deck. So that's a very common example where this can be a point where you can have an interactive and an exploratory report could be like an operations or sales or something that is a continuous kind of report. Say for example, I have in my office now, let's say I have an organization and there's a room where all my 50 sales reps are sitting down there calling, making sales back to back, trying to sell, right? And I want to have a report up in the office where at every point in time, I can see how much sales is generated by the minute. Okay, who is doing well, who is doing poorly, and be able to drill through right there on the fly. That kind of report is interactive but is exploratory because I just give you access in a better way of what is existing in your data, and then you go there and interact with it and try to figure out things, by yourself. In that scenario, if I created an interactive but explanatory report, right, it may not be as effective as creating something that is interactive and exploratory. Okay, so when you're trying to create reports, just try to sit back for a while. Just sit back and say, okay, should I make this static or interactive? So should I make it exploratory or um explanatory, right? Because even in Power BI, you have two tips. Sometimes maybe you don't need two tips, or sometimes you need to add a lot more things in two tips. Maybe sometimes you need to control what happens to a visual when you click on another one. Does this visual really need to filter this? Will it make sense if that visual continues to filter this? Those decisions still fall under this form versus function. Now, a lot of what I've said, right, is not coming from my head. Okay, the source of this is a book written by, so lots of books that I'll be referencing here. There's a book written by Jonathan Schwabish, right, called Better Data Visualization. So there's a page in that book that describes form versus function. What's the whole essence of that, and how that works. So at this point now, we are equipped with some techniques and strategies to solve the second part of the data visualization, right? We've talked about the what to the how. We've learned about two things now. The first one is the vocabulary. What are the different ways I can use to communicate certain messages? And then the second one is what? Form versus function, or form and function. What are the different ways I can put together, you know, this report? So once we have that in mind, I'm just going to share some report creation tips that we have in Power BI, or some tips that I would give you, okay, from my own experience of working with Power BI and seeing the stuff of other people. Number one, design the layouts to a grid system. Okay, design the layout to a grid system. And let me explain what I mean by design the layout to a grid system. When you take a blank canvas, right, you're starting out with a report. Think in grids. What do I mean by grids? Break up your page, right, into different sections. This is my header. These are my KPIs. This is my details about A. This is my details about B. This is my details about C. This is my details about D. This is my footer. This is my navigation. Think in grids. Design in grids. I'll show us an example of how I've done that in the previous report. But think in what? In grids. Break up your blank page, right, into what? Sections, right? And then fit things within that section. When you've exhausted the grid, right, then you move to another grid. Now I'll tell you how do you now determine that grid. We're going to look at that at the different points. But that's number one, design to a grid system, or design the layout to a grid system. The second one is consistency and intentionality in design elements. Many of us make this mistake. Okay, many of us make this mistake. We want to use icons, we want to use colors, layouts, your font sizes. Make it consistent in design theme, especially with icons. Yes, icons make your report look great, they make it look excellent, but all your icons in your report should kind of have the same design style. Okay, don't go and pick an icon that is very colored, right? Lots of colors, and put another icon next to it, or on another, maybe another part of your report, that is an icon that is just filled with a solid color, or it's an icon with outlines, right? And then you're now seeing three different types of icons. So you want to make sure that you're consistent, okay, with your icons. I'll come back to colors. Layout, right? For that layout, what you need to understand there is, when you start preparing a report and you've prepared your report in a particular way, section here, this here, that here, this here, that here. When your audience is looking at that report, the first page that they see, it gives them a kind of mental imprint of where to look for things, right? So if in my first page, I've put my page, let's say I created a page navigation and I put it on the left hand side, I can't go to my second page and I'm going to put it at the top, because the layout that I've given my audience is that report title up, layout navigation on the left. When I go to the second page, I should still know that that is the layout I'm going to expect. Or let's say, for example, I started designing it and I put KPIs at the top, first page. Second page, don't say you want to be fancy. Now go ahead and put your KPIs on the left hand side or your KPIs at the bottom or your KPIs at the right hand side. No, keep the layout consistent. So when someone is looking at your report, they can almost predict and it helps them easily find things. That is layout. Next up, font. Luckily for us with Power BI, it's a bit difficult to make this mistake, okay? Because there are some default fonts that you use. Sego UI and I think Dean for numbers. That's most like the default fonts that Power BI gives you. But then a lot of us are guilty of this just for the sake of it's not it's there's no variety, right? There isn't a lot of things there. It's just plain. It's just blank. You now think that, oh, you want to be a graphic designer. Here you use Sego UI. The other place you use area. Your numbers you use font. Your chart label you use God knows, maybe you use Gothic or something. You just splash the entire report with different fonts. Okay, when I mean font, I'm talking about typeface. That should not be. If you are using a particular font for your headers, your titles, everything like that, make sure the font is consistent. At most in a report, you shouldn't be using more than two types of fonts. You have a primary font for your text, your titles, all those text portions of it, and maybe you want to have a different font for your numbers because of how numbers are presented. So at most two types of fonts. Okay. The next one is font sizes. Very, very easy to commit this mistake, right? Very easy to commit this mistake. So you have a report page. Your report title is, let's say, in size 24, and you have a subtitle in size 18. Your second page is now report title size 28, subtitle size 12. You have some charts. Some charts, their title is 14. This one is 12. That one is 16. This one is 14. Different sizes for the fonts everywhere. Your axis, different sizes. All of those things, they don't usually seem like a problem. Okay, but I'll tell you this one for free, which is when things don't look right. Okay, when someone looks at the report and they see some kind of distortions or wrong proportions between how things look, it creates distrust, hmm, in that report. It makes people not trust what you've done. If you look at the reports now, I would even just maybe go back in time from your own experience, some things that you've done, where you had reports where the charts were not properly aligned, right? One was a few inches lower in the arrangement from the other one, or the spaces between your visuals were not really the same. Okay, even if that analysis is good, right? You almost start to think maybe that person that did it is either one inexperienced, right, or two probably did not spend a lot of time doing it. Okay, so it's you can almost wash down all your hard work, right? Wash down all your hard work just because the consistency in how your report is designed, is how your report is presented, right? It's not there. And one way to easily resolve that is using report themes, which is what I will show us. The only thing I plan to show us today in Power BI is how to use report themes, how to customize your report theme. So we'll have a demo session on that. I hope I'm not running out of time. Moderator, could you please confirm if I still have time?
Hello, sir.
Yes, I hope I'm not running out of time.
Actually,
Can
we
I?
are enjoying you. You can
So I can.
continue, sir.
Okay, excellent. Thank you
Just a
for
little
that. I
bit
don't.
minutes, sir.
Okay, all right. I'm almost done. I'm almost done. Okay, so third point, use the right charts. I think we've covered this extensively already when we're looking at, you know, how to visualize, looking at the visual vocabulary. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. Okay. Next up, we have one report page for a user story. Okay, that ties back to what I was saying before. Is that okay? You sat down, you've looked at what the user journey is going to be. Now, that entire user journey definitely will not be, you won't be able to fit it on one single page. Okay, you will never be able to fit it on one single page. So you can break those journeys into smaller bits and design a reports page to say, okay, when my boss or my audience sits down and look at this report, This is the journey that if they decide to go on this journey, they would be able to completely go on that journey on this page. And then you design another page for your different user stories. So this user story is supposed to give you overview. This one's supposed to help you break down products. It's supposed to help you look at the top customers. Just define that story across all your reports. Next up, design with expansion in mind. Now this one is even a tip I'm giving myself. We want to design um, picture perfect reports the first time, not leaving room for feedback and for things to change. Okay, so someone now gives you a change, you're now very reluctant to make that change. No, right? Design with the intention that, oh, someone is going to come back, right? Because someone's going to give you feedback and you're going to take that feedback and improve on your report. So you might need to maybe add a couple of things here, increase the number of items you're showing here, and all of those things. So design with expansion, or maybe better put, design with flexibility. Okay. The next one is use colors strategically, right? Colors is not to make your report beautiful. Colors is to help you in the communication of your message. Now, many of us will say we struggle with choosing the right colors because we're not designers and all of those things, which is fine, no problem, right? A good rule of thumb when it comes to using colors in your report is you typically don't need more than three, like more than three colors. So you need one color that will be like your accent color, which is you want to draw attention to certain things. You have one color. You have another color that is complementary, kind of supports it supports that color. Then you have another color that kind of creates a contrast, right? So if you want to compare two completely different things, you have a color that helps you do that, and you have another color that is contrasting that. And you have one more color to complement what you already have. Then you take those three colors in addition to white, black, and gray, you're good, right? So one accent color, right? You want your dominant color. You have something that just complements that, and you have something that's going to be like a comparison color to that. You pick that, add that to white, black, gray. That's it. Those are all your three primary colors. And then after that, you just have shades and tones, lighter or darker versions of that color. That's all you need in your report. Really. You would never exhaust the entire palette. I think Power BI gives you 8 colors. Maybe you can now add things like maybe you have some red, green colors, some danger colors. Those that can be things that you have in your reports, but they're not going to be used, every time. So use colors strategically. And second to last point is what? Function before aesthetics, right? You're not a graphics designer, right? Your job is not to create art. Yes, art is the design is important, but function first before aesthetics. And finally, learn from good examples. Okay, I I emphasize good because they are examples, but they may not be good. Okay, I can see some questions in the chat. I'll come to those questions. So learn from good examples. All right, not just any examples, good examples. And those are very good ways to challenge yourself. You can see the way someone has designed a report and try to take it and you try and recreate it yourself. What you'd find out that in the process of recreating it, you start to think and you start to see the reason why that person has made those decisions. Okay, so learn from good examples. So very quick case study of something that I did just to show us how a couple of these things have been applied. I have applied these things. So there's a report I did. I call this report the gift that keeps giving, right? Because it's a report that has brought me a lot of opportunities and so on. So I created it a while back, I think in 2022 or so, or 2023 thereabouts, and it was a submission for a the enterprise NA challenge I was talking about, right? So one of the challenges that they ran a few months or weeks or years ago now about hotel revenue management, and this was my entry for that submission. Now you might see this and think, wow, this is good. Will I ever be able to create this and all of this? But what I just want to focus here is how I was thinking about the design, right? I'm not going to show us everything, but how I was thinking about the design. So when I had this report in mind, or when I was planning to do this report, design is hard. There's no even lie. Design is hard. It's hard. It's not all of us that can do it. It's hard. So you want to pick inspiration, right? see what other people have done and see if you can replicate it. And one of those things I did then was I was on Microsoft Learn, just reading about reporting and the things I had on Microsoft Learn, and I saw this that was created as one of the sample reports there. So this was something there, right? And if you look at it, you see some similarities between this and what I have on my screen. So I saw this, and then this was the second page of that report. So I said, let me use that to create my own. So I took out PowerPoint because I do my planning and design in PowerPoint, right? So I took out PowerPoint, started to design. Okay, I put the shape here, put the shape there, put a space for my logo, put a background, created my landing page. Okay, this is how I wanted the layout of the report to look. Put in my title and a logo. Right, this is my starting point. So I have this. Next up, I want to do multiple pages, and I wanted to have a navigation, and this is where I wanted a navigation to be. Top right, have 4 pages. This is what it's going to be when it's highlighted. This is what it's going to be when it's not highlighted. Now that I have my overview page, how did I want to break up my overview page? I took inspiration what I saw before, and I broke it up into these sections, right? So on the left hand side of my division, I was going to have KPIs, different groups of KPIs, right? And each KPI was going to look something like this: an icon, a text, a KPI name, the value of the KPI, and then some additional details about that, right? And I was going to have that here, have that there, have that there. So this was my plan. And then on the left hand side, I wanted to do some kind of navigation stuff, switch between pages, add filters, add some information icon or something like that, right? That's how I got to this report. So it's just about planning. I had done those what to do, questions I wanted to ask and everything. Then I sat down, started to do the design part. And once I was clear on the focus of my report, the design part just kind of fits in based on the inspirations that I had, then I was able to create this. Okay, so it's not rocket science. It does require practice, but there is a lot of resources to help you do it. So I've said a lot of things, right? There's a lot more that we can't talk about that I will not be able to speak of. So I'm going to share with us some resources. So here are a couple of books that, if you're trying to dive into, reporting and analytics and the things around data visualization and all of those things, right? Here are a few excellent books that will get you there. You don't need to read all of them. You could pick some, say which one you are enjoying, right? And then use it. I've mentioned a couple of them during the session, so you can see and the Kirk's data visualization, a handbook for data-driven design. You can see data points. Many of us are familiar with storytelling with data. Information Dashboard Design by Stephen Few is a very excellent book. Stephen Few is one of the pioneers about data visualization as we think about it today. You have the Big Book of Dashboards. Excellent book, done largely with Tableau, but it gives you real life examples of how dashboards or principles around reporting and dashboards are actually applied to real life business scenarios. So very great book. They have How Charts Lie by Alberto Cairo, which is a very excellent book. I haven't read that book, just read the preface of it, but what that book would give you is how you can make mistakes or mislead people by the way you visualize reports or by the way you create um, dashboards. So you can take a snapshot of this. It will be shared with us as well. And yeah, that will kind of bring us to the end of my session. So this is where I would be taking questions. Okay.
Thank you very much, sir.
All
We
right.
really
Thank
enjoyed
you.
it. So, as we usually do here, if you have any question, please raise up your hand. I'm going to unmute you and you will have a chance to speak up. So, we have
Oh,
two persons right now. So, I'm starting
okay.
with Abdul Wahid
Why don't
Mustafa.
let us start? Let's start with the question that we have in the chat. I can see we have a
Okay.
question in the chat by I think it's Kibe. Forgive me if I'm not pronouncing your name correctly. But Kibe says, how can I ensure that all the visuals on my dashboard are equally spaced and have the same spaces between them? Is there somewhere I can enable grid lines to ensure this? Very well, Kibe. I'll show us how to do that in Power BI. Okay, so let's save that for later. So, moderator, you can go ahead, please. Would you want to pick from those that want to meet and speak?
So, Mr. Abdulwahid, I've unmute you. You can speak now.
All right. Thank you very much, Bolaji.
Thank you.
It
Thank
was
you.
really an amazing session, and it's also nice to see my fellow Unilagites.
Good
Not
to see you
not
as well.
not not to make that as a sense of proud, but I really
Yeah.
appreciate the way you've taken this whole thing. And
Mhm.
please permit me, I'm a student also here, but permit me
Okay.
to add this from my own point of experience because I see a
Hmm.
lot of dashboard. In fact, I can't count how many dashboard I've seen since I started this course, within and outside. But I think one
Hmm.
thing people need to note is when you're working with a client, understand the brand of that client in also the
Hmm.
report you're building. So your client has a gold and blue, and you get a job to analyze the data, and you're coming with red, purple, indigo, and the
Hmm.
likes. But you were
Yeah.
very spot on to limit your colors to three. But I think it's more specific to limit your color selection to the client you are analyzing the data for. Thank you very much.
Hmm. Hmm. Good point. Good point, Abdulwahid. Thank you for that. I mean, there are discussions around that because there are sometimes where the brand color may not really be the best color. So take for example a brand that has a lots of red and green, right? While it might be good to follow the brand color, red and green, would not then be used to mean something good, like maybe you want to show positive or negatives, right? So yes, it's good to design to the brand, okay, but you don't need to use all the colors in the brand. So you could pick maybe one or two colors from the brand colors, and make it part of your report, just like Abdul Wahid has said. So thank you very much for that contribution.
Okay. I'm going to unmute Abdul Samad Ibrahim now. You have the floor. Hello, Mr. Abdul Samad. You can speak now.
Hello, can you hear me now, please?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello. Yeah, thank you
Yes.
so much for this fantastic and impactful section, Mr. Balaji. Yeah, my question was like, you were talking about when you were talking about the what's it called, trying to design your grid layout in PowerPoint. Please, can you please share with us within some few minutes, like how do you create that grid, what's it called, that those grid layouts to make your reports perfect in Power BI? Thank you.
Okay. All right. So I think I have two practical answers to give now, one for Samad and one for Kibe. Okay, great. So let me do something. Let me just pull up that exact PowerPoint file that I used when I was creating that report, and then you all can see what my process was like. Okay. Yeah. So this was the exact Power BI PowerPoint file that I used. Now, if I just show you all the objects on this, you would see that these are all shapes. Okay. All I've done is created different shapes and icons, and that's exactly what is happening here. So if I was to start this from scratch, for example, right, start with a blank shape. I come here, I insert a shape, right, center it, or align it, I resize it, do this. This then forms my background. Okay, I fill it, make it some kind of light color. That's fine. Can now come in there again, insert another shape. You just build it out basically. Okay, so I want something here for my headers. All right. Okay, maybe I want to have that in a different color, just fine. Or maybe this should be white so that I can put my text. Okay, good. So I have that. I can duplicate this. This then forms the body of my chart. Okay, so I don't want all these outlines. So no outline. Nope. So I can come here and say no outline, do the same thing here, no outline, do the same thing here, no outline, right? So I'm getting a starting point of my report. or maybe I want to do exactly what I did before. Again, it's all just shapes. You just keep inserting shapes and you're breaking things out. From this point on, I can insert maybe a line and say, okay, I want to divide the report up here. And then I make it match the same color as the other things I have in my background. Because it's a line, I might use not that. Because it's a line, I might increase the weight to, make a bit more sense. And then turn the colors back to something to match my background. So this divides my reports to one section, create another one, divides my reports into another section. I can duplicate it, come here, rotate it to the right. I'm creating another line, make this shorter, push that up, and you just basically just play around with the shapes, resize things. Okay, I messed it up. What did I do? Okay. So you just come around and you just use the shapes to kind of design what it is that you want to do, really. Okay. So I wouldn't want to spend too much time on it, but this is just basically how you do it. So now when let's say you've designed the layout completely, you now want to get this out and use it in Power BI. So you can come over here, come to your file, then go to export, then change the file type. You export it either as a PNG or you export it as an SVG. So when you go to save as, you can export it as an SVG. Now the advantage of doing that is you can then come into Power BI. So let's say I'm now in Power BI here. You can then come into Power BI and say, okay, for my background, come here to Canvas background. You can then browse for an image. Don't think I have an image to show now. Let me just quickly use this one as an example. Okay. So I'll export this file, save as. I'll put it up on my desktop. Put it as SVG. So SVG makes it that you don't lose the quality. So just this one slide. So I have an SVG exported from this. So then I'll come back to my Power BI, come to my Canvas background. I browse for it, go to my desktop, pick the SVG, dashboard layout, click open. And I decrease the transparency, fit it to the page. I see my background here. So now I can already use this as like a starting point to design my report, to like kind of fit the structure of my report. So this is how you can do that. Then to the other question of how do you ensure that things are properly aligned. So let me just throw on some visuals here. So I have this here now. Okay. Just going to throw up random visuals here. Let's put something there. Say what? City. Put orders. Okay, that's one. It's just not about the design of the dashboard now. So just duplicating stuff around for now. Okay. So now one thing you can actually use to help yourself is in PowerPoint you can set the different grids, okay, to get what you want. Now when I just duplicate, say I had 4 different things here and I want to ensure that they are all equally spaced. I can select everything, come over to format, align, and distribute horizontally. Okay. Now one thing that many of us don't know is you can move visuals around without even dragging them. So when you select a visual, come over to your format, you have general, you have properties, then you have position. If I just wanted to move this visual 1 pixel down, come to vertical and I increase it, it moves it just 1 pixel down. If I wanted to move it 1 pixel up, move it 1 pixel up. So I can use that to kind of estimate, okay, what position is my chart on. I just make sure that everything is aligned on the left, on the right. Use the distribution to ensure that it's equally spaced, and all of those things. So this is just very, very quick example to answer the question. I know we will not be able to touch on everything. All right. Okay. So, any more questions I need to answer?
Please, if you have any more questions, please raise up your hand. And don't
Okay.
forget to do the quiz and fill out the evaluation form. Okay. We have Davis Emeka here. I will mute your mic now. You can speak.
Okay, good evening. Please, can you hear me?
Yes, Davis, you can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. It was really informative session. A quick one, please. I don't know if you can quickly demonstrate how to customize theme on Power BI.
Okay. Yes, thank
Thank
you
you.
for that. Okay, so how do you customize themes in Power BI? So let me make my banner look similar. So when you come over to view, you see themes here. So Power BI has a couple of themes that you can choose from. It has its own colors and all those things, but you can't customize your own theme. So if I come here and say customize current theme, it gives me this box here. So what happens is I can name my theme and say, okay, this is what analytics extra theme. Okay, and then I define what my colors will be. Remember what I talked about before, right? You can set up your colors here so that you're always using those same colors. When you come over to the advanced, if you want to use different colors for your fonts, you can use that. But what I like the most is this one, the text and the visuals. Okay, so for the text now, you can determine, okay, title text, anything that is like a chart title, what should be the font, what should be the size of it, so that by default it already uses that font and size. For your cards and KPIs, if you don't want to use the default thing, you want to use Sego UI, you can set it up here. Do you want a default size for your cards? When you put them up, you can set them up here. Come over to visuals. Do you want your visuals to have a background or not? If you want to have a background, you can set up what the specific color should be. Come over to border, you can do that. You have page background color, page wallpaper. You can also set the filter pane. So this is a smaller introduction, let me put it that way, right? To what's it called? To designing themes. But there's a way you can get the actual theme file itself, right? And use it. So let's say, let me just apply this for example, and then I go to save current theme. So when I go to save current theme, you ask me where do I want to save it. Let me just save it on my desktop and say save. Now, when I go to my desktop, I'm just going to go to my desktop and open up that theme. Where is it? Theme. So it is going to be like a JSON file, right? So I'm just going to use something like VS Code to open it, so you see what it actually is. Now, don't be scared. Okay, we're not writing code, but this is basically what we've just generated. Okay, it's not formatting correctly. Essentially, your theme is generated with this. See, can it format this? Yeah. So all the things that we just changed, you see it here. Label, font size is this, font size is this is that. The data colors are there. All of those things are here. And then there are other ways you can now define a lot of elements around it. But at a very basic level, just change the themes here. That helps you change what colors, what font sizes for your titles and all of those things, you know, and you're good. So I hope that answers your question, Delvis. Adrashid says I will take group because you saw VS Code. It's a lie. It's
It
just
does. Thank you
front.
very
It's
much.
front. All right. Thank you so much, Delvis. So I think um that should bring us to the session. We've shot the time by about 30 minutes. Moderator, do you want to take it over from here?
Yes, sir. Wow. Thank you very much, sir. We really appreciate you sharing your knowledge. I think I will start designing my own report soon with PowerPoint.
Excellent, excellent. I'm looking forward to that. So if you want to reach out to me, I think I put that up already. Let me take this off my screen. Yeah, so those are my socials on LinkedIn or on Twitter. You'd find me there. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you
I
very
can
much,
see a
sir.
lot of
Please
feedbacks in the
kindly drop
chat.
the thank you. Kindly drop the thank you emoji for Mr. Bolaji. We really enjoyed it today, sir. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all very much. So